Alison Edgar. How are you?
I am top of the world, actually. Amazing. Thank you so much for asking, and thank you for having me on the show, Eric.
No problem at all. We had a little couple of minutes just before this and discovered that we grew up just across the Clyde from each other, Clyde Bank to Erskine.
Well, I think we discovered that I came from the right side of the river and maybe you not so much.
Yes, pretty much the Erskine Bridge divide, indeed. But you're currently at home in Bath, right?
Yeah, just outside Bath in Wiltshire we are. So yeah, and obeying the rules, staying in, getting our daily exercise.
And are you able to do what you do, which we can come to later in this little interview? Are you able to do what you normally do virtually?
I'm doing it even more because
Right.
one of the things, I've got quite a few international clients in the Middle East, and there was always that, oh yeah, getting on the plane, going across. But now we're doing it all virtually, and I've picked up a new team that I'm training, and they're kind of all over like Greater Manchester. And rather than having to go up there on the train, I'm doing it virtually. So I'm kind of rocking lockdown at the moment. So
I love it. I love it. Now, one of the reasons I asked you to come on was fascinated by this story. There are many salespeople who have long and fruitful careers and perhaps retire in sales or move into general management and have, a great time doing what they're doing and achieve success. Very few people stop halfway through and go, hold on a minute, I'm onto something really, really good here. I've developed something which I think people should hear, and then become a TED speaker, working with the government, the BBC, working with all the entrepreneurs. How do you go from, I think hospitality, started running about hospitality and sales and then moved through. How do you go from there to the Alison Edgar we know today? What happened?
So I think it's one of the fundamentals of sales. You can only sell something you believe in. And at the time, I'd worked in corporate for some major players in the UK market. But the company I was working for were going through some big changes, and they weren't changing at the same pace that I would have liked them to change. I wanted them to move faster, and it was taking longer. So I thought it's time for me to do something different. And I never really wanted to set up my own business. I certainly never wanted to write a book. I certainly never envisaged working with the government or going to Buckingham Palace. They kind of were byproducts of the fact that, having worked in and around the small business arena, I knew that one of the things they struggled with was when the phone didn't ring. They struggled to sell, they struggled to convert, they struggled to be proactive. And I thought, you know what? This is something I'm really good at. This is something I can do. And it wasn't to set out to help the world. It was just, if I can help one person, then I'll be really proud of what I've done. So I think that was always the core fundamentals, that it was to help people. And let's face it, that's what sales is anyway. I think one of the things I discovered during the journey is I'm actually quite good at selling myself. I'm quite good at self-promotion. So, when I was doing things, I could always sort of turn it into a bit of a PR story. That wasn't why I did it, but it was always quite easy for me to flip. And because the way that I figured, the more people that the higher I grew the profile, the more people that I could help. And I think then when it came to the book, there used to be government funding. So at the time when I sort of expanded the company, which was in 2014, there was match funding for my services, and that then allowed me to help more people. But when they pulled the funding, it was quite quick. I mean, it was 2015 and 16, not much warning was given. And the people who needed me most were the startups and the micro businesses. But they're also fundamentally the people who don't have much money. So how can I help them on a low cost? And that's when I decided to write Secrets of Successful Sales. So it kind of just grew and grew and grew. And before I knew it, I am where I am now.
That's incredible. Do you think that's anything to do with, was that nature or nurture, that decision to take this out on your own? Did you work out how to do this, or do you think it was in you? Is that a Glasgow thing?
Well, you know what? It's a really great question, Eric, because on reflection, And again, I don't know, because I'm forever questioning, why does that happen? How, what, why, where, when, how? It's the salesperson's biggest skill is asking questions. And I think it's a good thing for entrepreneurs is asking questions of yourself. You always want to get to the answer. And I think that I was always, dyslexia is an interesting one, because I wasn't diagnosed dyslexic until I was in my 30s, maybe late
Wow.
30s, early 40s. It was late.
Right.
And I just thought academically I was a wee bit thick, right? Because growing up in Scotland in the 80s, if you weren't academic, then, you know, that was like, oh, she's a fickle. But what I did learn, I learned something was to dig deep and find my superpower. So I love people, right? I enjoy people. I enjoy people's company. I can influence people. People tend to quite like what I do. So I think it's focusing on your strengths. So nature or nurture. I was never, my mum and dad were always proud of me no matter what I did. And it's interesting because my sister's a pharmacist. So she was a straight A student. She went to Strathclyde Uni and all that. But she was never great at selling herself. So when it came to, you know, getting the O grades and stuff, she might get the odd little congratulations card. So I got a C for my arithmetic, and the house was flooded with cards because people expected me to get nothing because I was a bit thick. And here I got a C for arithmetic, so that the house was flooded. So again, I think I've always been able to sort of sell myself and promote myself, which I think comes from my confidence. And I believe that my confidence came from my parents bringing me up to believe that I could do anything I wanted. You know, they didn't believe my lack of academia would hold me back. And it's interesting because obviously, you know, the gift of the gab. But in sales, it's never about the gift of the gab. It's about 2 ears and one mouth. So I think that's what I learned. It's, you know, you need to speak up for yourself, but to get what you want, really, it's about listening and not talking.
Wow. Well, one of the things I was really impressed about on your TED Talk, which I urge everyone to go and check out, is the fact that you tapped into, which unfortunately I don't see a hell of a lot of in sales, and we need to see more of it, is you tapped in at some point in your career into the fact that this is about behaviors. This is about tapping into how people think and adapting and sort of remodeling myself to tune into the type of person that I'm pitching to or the type of person that I'm selling to. Was that something that came to you quite early, or something that you brought in later in life in sales?
No, late. I mean, it's interesting because I look back now, and I worked for Yale, which was Yellow Pages. Oh, look, I'm even wearing the jacket to prove it. For 15 years. And one of the things they did was the DISC methodology. So DISC, but when they did this, I was off on maternity leave. So I kind of was picking it up secondhand. But when I picked it up, I thought, oh, this is huge. This is huge. And I think I've always had fairly good emotional intelligence. But I think when you use DISC, it really makes a difference. So I kind of live and breathe it, not just as far as work goes, but in every day. You know, if I meet somebody in a supermarket, if I do, and I think self-awareness, I'm really self-aware of where I sit. So I think if you're self-aware, you know what you have to work in. So for example, the blues, who are the relationship-focused introverts, that's the kind of the colour I struggle with, because they need the minute detail and I'm more big picture. So I think it's really been able to work with that from that aspect works really well.
Very good. You do a lot of work with entrepreneurs, and in fact, you're an award-winning entrepreneur yourself. What do you look for in a startup? When do you get that kind of, oh, here's something interesting? What gives you the spark when you're looking at startups and entrepreneurs?
So do you know what's really interesting? It's a wee bit like talent shows. So it's a wee bit like the X Factor. So when you watch the X Factor, apart from like the duffers they put on just for entertainment factor that can't settle, most of the time they go on the X Factor or Britain's Got Talent and they can sing, right? They can sing. So you're watching them and you know, you think, that one's quite good, that one's quite good. But then all of a sudden you see like a Leona Lewis, or you see a James Arthur, or you see, you know, somebody who has actually got the X Factor. And that's what I see in entrepreneurship. And it's interesting because people will say to me, are entrepreneurs born or are they made? And I think business owners, I think anybody can start a business, but you look, and again, you watch things like Dragon's Den or, The Apprentice, and you see the stars, knowing business is about knowing numbers. And, people say, can you explain business in a nutshell? Well, it's like being on a diet, right? To lose weight, you have to eat less and exercise more. To run a successful business, it's not rocket science. Sell more, spend less, make profit, job done. And I think the entrepreneurs who have got that talent, they've got a quirky mind. A lot of them are dyslexic because we think things differently, we function differently, we can always overcome problems. We never really see a problem, we just see a solution. And they've all definitely, a thread is they've definitely got a growth mindset. They welcome a failure because they learn from it. So that's what I sort of see. And I mean, touch wood, I work with some amazing, especially young entrepreneurs. So Ben Towers was voted like the Power Teen 100. Richard Branson wrote a blog about him. Jordan Dakin was the youngest contestant to get funding on Dragon's Den. Simon Crowther, he's got a flood business. He's just amazing. Alana Spencer won The Apprentice in 2016. I'm blessed to be in to have these guys working alongside me. And that's where I think, that relationship stems, that we both respect each other.
Yeah, sure. What you just said there, if you're not selling, you don't have a business, right? So we're in pretty tough times right now. Economic uncertainty, a lot of, never mind entrepreneurs and startups, a lot of big businesses are wondering what is round the corner, what's going to happen, never mind, fourth quarter, what's happening next week. So you're doing some work just now to help startups and entrepreneurs through this and try and sort of realign them. And the cool word at the moment is pivot their businesses, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at the moment we're doing I've got a free course. If you jump onto the Entrepreneurs Godmother course, online courses, there's one, How to Sell to Anyone. And the code to take away the price, it's usually about 50 quid, is positive, capitals positive. And that will give any listener like an access to the behaviours part of the course. I think pivot's an interesting one because it's getting overused at the moment. It's like, oh, here we go again, pivot. And if you look at things like, Scotland's finest, the boys from Brewdog, I mean, they really have pivoted because they've changed from booze to hand sanitizer. They saw on demand. So again, that's a great pivot. But, a lot of service industries are putting their things online or they're doing webinars. That's not really a pivot. You're doing the same as you did before. You're just doing it in a different way. So I think you have to define what the pivot is. I mean, we did something quite interesting. I'm always a wee bit like a salmon. I like to swim up the stream just to try things differently. And everybody was doing free webinar for this, free webinars for that. And I thought, I ain't doing nothing for free. How can I do something for free when I'm teaching people to make money and sell? Yeah. So we did a wee webinar last week, and instead of doing it for free, we charged £12.50 including VAT, so £10.42. And we had 54 people. So that was like 500 odd quid for, an hour's delivery. Yeah. And it was just to prove a point that there is money out there. There are people who are spending money. You've just got to still the same business as usual. What do they need? How can you fill it? And like you would have done before, you would have done a risk assessment whether somebody was going to pay your invoice before this. It's business as usual. I know, and you look at a lot of the businesses that are really struggling, the hospitality, the coffee shops, there are a lot of people who have been affected. And again, I know there's a few people that fall down the gaps, but actually the government's given them a grant to see them through. They're getting their staff furloughed, that's getting paid, and if they had been running their business prior to this with the slush fund and the rule of thirds, then they should be able to come out the other end. But again, a lot of people don't run their businesses by, sell more, spend less. And, I know there are exceptions, so I don't mean it to come across harsh, but ultimately, this is one of the things that does happen when you run your own business. You should be prepared for these things.
Absolutely. One of the things that I think is particularly important, and I know you agree, is ensuring that you have a good, and I know it's a horrible term, some people don't like it, your own personal brand, right? Your own personal brand. If someone goes online and tries to check out Alison Edgar or Outdoyle, they should get the best digital version of you. Now, looking at your LinkedIn page is quite embarrassing for some, because yours is a bit like a kind of Michelin star LinkedIn page. There's not many that can put the breadth of stuff that you're doing. I mean, you're doing how do you fit it all in? You're doing a hell of a lot of stuff.
Do you know what? And people say that to me all the time, right? And so again, it's really quite interesting, because I think it links back to when we started to chat offline, and you're like, thank you so much. Like you're doing the stuff for the BBC. I can't believe that you said yes to coming on. I feel honoured that people ask me to come on to their shows, or, be part of their interviews, or to comment on their books, and I think that's the thing that I created all of this from nothing. So 4 or 5 years ago, you wouldn't even have known who I was.
Right.
So I think, we talk about mission statement, vision statement. And so I think I've always been quite clear on those from, I'm maybe not the very start of the journey, but early doors. My mission is, I genuinely believe, when it's delivered correctly, that sales and customer service is exactly the same thing. And that's at the core of everything I teach. So I think it's important for me to get the mission statement out there and encourage people to sell. It's not a dirty word, it's not a sleazy word, it's customer service. Yep. But the vision has always been that I want to be the Adele of sales. I want to stand out there in front of the big, put me in, I was going to say Wembley Stadium, Hampden, put me in Hampden Park.
Put me in Hampden Park.
And let me talk about sales, because I love it. And I think it's really the same with the pink. You can see, I know it's interesting with this virtual background, because if I move my head too fast, I disappear, which is great for my bingo wings. If I hold them up, I disappear. But there'll always be a bit of pink in there. And again, I believe it's really important that, like you see on my LinkedIn, I am positive, and coming back to the X factor, what makes somebody different. With me, what you see is what you get. A lot of people move into personal development because they've gone through a tough time or a rough time, and they've learned all these techniques through personal development, and they think they can share that with other people. I've never been personally developed. Like, what you see is what you get with me. And I think that's what makes my X factor, that I always believe I can get better. It's like, does Leona Lewis think she can sing better? I bet she does. She doesn't think she's like knows every note. And that's like me. But I genuinely believe that however I've been put on earth to encourage people to sell or be positive. And that's why I'm not shy at, putting that out there. Why would I, so many people hold themselves back by not sharing it on LinkedIn or not putting it on LinkedIn. And it's not to be, check me out, I'm pure dead brilliant. But if I can, if somebody can interview me and I can inspire one person, that's my job's done. It's not about money. It's about, encouraging people to be able to do the things they didn't think they could do. Is that a good way to describe it?
Oh, totally. Something that's coming through loud and clear on these Crux casts that we're doing with thought leaders and business leaders is the desire and need for authenticity and realness. Drop the empty suit, drop the sort of corporate fluff, and show me who you are as a real person. Now, there's a lot of that going on right now, almost by design, because people are real. Right, I need to be authentic, so I'm going to put some stuff out there as authentic. I don't think you've really, from your first public outings, I don't think you've ever really changed. You've been authentic from the get-go. You've been quite happy to talk about your maybe perceived failings in life and how you deal with those. Authenticity is pretty much at the core of what you do, right?
It's really interesting, that word authenticity, because it's like quite high profile, and I never take it as being, and do you know the interesting thing, Eric, right? So again, off air, we were talking about Clydebank, and the fact prior to lockdown, I'd just been up for a funeral. My auntie died, and I'm still friends with my friends from school. I'm still friends. I used to live in Australia, South Africa. I'm still friends with them. I'm still friends with my family. People that I've worked with. I'm the same. I haven't, and I've always had I've always had an opinion. I know that sounds a wee bit weird, and I'm on the roster for the BBC. So you were talking about the BBC. So I do BBC Breakfast. I've done the BBC News on like some of the department stores. I do the radio quite often, and in the roster notes, it's got Alison Edgar has an opinion on everything. And I have. The thing is, and I think this is important, I have got an opinion on everything, but I don't always think my opinion is right. So if I've got an opinion and somebody says, Alison, actually, that's not quite right. Have you considered this, this, and this? I go, no, I didn't actually consider that. Let me reevaluate. And I'm open to say, actually, I'm really sorry that I was wrong there, or I'm really sorry. I hadn't considered that. Now my opinion is this. So I don't always think my opinion, I've got an opinion, but I don't always think my opinion is right. I'm open to discussion. And I think that's, again, a sign of authenticity, that you're not copy. I don't have to copy anybody else. I just literally be me, and I can be swayed, but I'm open and honest to that fact. And I think it is about the open and honest. And I've got one of my favourite girl crushes at the moment. And again, because I'm dyslexic, I struggle with reading, but I love a wee TED talk, or I love a wee video, is Brene Brown. And she talks about vulnerability and shame. And, I've been going through a wee bit of a personal journey myself with running. I don't know if you've seen any of my running journey, but I've gone from not doing any exercise at all. And this was in July 19, so less than a year ago. And last week I did 13 miles, and it wasn't all running. I was trying to run 13 miles, but I couldn't. But I've gone from couch to a half marathon in 10 months. Again, I'm honest, I didn't run all the way. There was some walking included, but I still did it. And I think that's where, like, week one of this running malarkey, on my personal Facebook, I've been doing a wee bit of a vlog. And I started crying. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I can't run for a minute. But that gives me the strength. And I think, so many people try and either use vulnerability as an angle to get attention, or the reverse. They pretend that they are perfect and they're not. So I think it's about getting the balance. And I think the way that I talk about it, Eric, right? So I don't know if you've ever watched like Big Brother, or I'm a Celebrity, or any of the reality things, right? You can go in on day one with the hair's perfect. You've got the extensions in. Got the extensions in, Eric? Is that ringing the bells? Got the extensions in, got the nails done, got the makeup on, and you'll be nice to everybody. But by day 12 in the Big Brother house, you can't help but being yourself. And I think that's where a lot of people try and fake it. Fake it till you make it. You can't fake it till you make it, especially if you want longevity. That's why, if MD goes back on any of my videos and says, oh, you said this, you said that, well, I'll still stick by what I've said, because everything I'll back. So I think that's one of the secrets, really.
Alison, if you could stand up on the top of Big Ben with a loud hailer and appeal to every small business and entrepreneur, or even, business leader, regardless of size, what would your advice be at this point? If you can think just off the top of your head. Sorry for putting you on the spot. What would your sort of core advice be at the moment during these uncertain
my
times?
core advice is sales and customer service is exactly the same if you do it correctly. If you ain't doing it correctly, now is the time to learn, because sales is the thing to get us through this current situation. And just as hand sanitizer is to hygiene, sales is to the recovery of our economy. Do not be shy. Go out there and find people that need what you are selling, and that's all it is. And you have to do this. You have to do this for the economy and the world economy.
I don't think there's any point in pushing that any further. I think that's a beautiful, nice wee piece to end on. Thank you so much for coming. How can people get a hold of you, Alison, the people that don't know you?
I'm quite big on the old LinkedIn. So Alison Edgar, the name is right behind me. And then Alison Edgar, the website, the Entrepreneurs Godmother. Google me. Google Alison Edgar. I own quite a few pages. I'm not hard to find, Eric. I am quite easy to track down.
Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. I wish you well with the running and still continuing your virtual business with the team. And we're going to continue to follow your progress as you march through this. And maybe we'll come back in at some point and see what it's like, life after COVID.
I would love to. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks a lot, Alison. Bye-bye.
Thank you.